Hello, everyone. My name's Howard Storm, and we're discussing this book, My Descent into Death, which was first published in the year 2000 in Great Britain and then published in the United States in 2005. We're doing chapter 14 today, and I put on this outfit to be funny, and also chapter 14 is about me trying to find something that I thought at the time, it felt like it was like critical. My life depended on finding it. So it occurred to me this morning that in this chapter about next to heaven, that's what I was looking for, something next to heaven, because I didn't like this world. I still don't like this world. I was looking for something better. So I've got my hunting outfit on. I'm not a hunter. I don't hunt at all, but it wouldn't be uncommon to find a hunter in the US. I don't know about anywhere else in the world dressed like this. Anyhow, I'm in my office and it's way too hot to be wearing the hat and the jacket. So I'll have to go. After my near-death experience, I was so isolated. My wife, my kids, my mother, my friends, everybody I knew didn't want to hear about it. And they didn't want to hear about my great excitement in this thing that was completely new to me called the Bible and Christianity. When I got home from the hospital and started to recover, get some strength, got my eyesight back and stuff like that, I just started reading the Bible like crazy, and I found it incredibly exciting. And I found that there was, I really felt like God was talking to me through the Bible, and I still feel that today. So that was in 1985, and this is many years later, and I still find that, like, when I read the Bible, it's like a conversation between me and God, and He inspires me, inspirits me through the Holy Spirit with lots of things that are said in the Bible. I find the Bible to be the only book I've ever read, the only literature I've ever read that's alive. I mean, I like to say it talks to me. You know, other literature, I read it, sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good, but the Bible is like a different experience. I call it the talking book. Jesus told me about that in my near-death experience. So that's why I started reading the Bible, and I'm still reading the Bible today. Matter of fact, this year with my Bible study class at church, we're reading the whole Bible from cover to cover in a year. The Bible in a year. It's kind of an interesting experience because there's parts of the Bible that I favor over others, and some parts of the Bible are just like plain boring and uninteresting. And other parts are just like wildly exciting. But the nice thing about a Bible in the year course that we're following is that it has Old Testament, New Testament, Proverb, and Psalm every day. So there's always something good in there, or more, usually more than just one thing good. There's usually several really good things. So it's worth slogging through some of the stuff that's not interesting to get to, you know. Anyhow, so I became like a Bible reading fanatic. And then I thought, okay, nobody believes me. Because I'm home recuperating from my illness, trying to get my strength back. Nobody believes me. But they got to believe the Bible, because the Bible's been around for thousands of years, and like there's billions of Christians in the world. So they don't believe me, but they'll believe the Bible. So what I started doing was like reading passages from the Bible to my family, or memorizing passages from the Bible and reciting to them. And the more resistance I got, because they were like totally not interested, and they made it amply clear, both with their body language and their words and their insults to me, I started shouting the Bible readings at them, thinking, well, I guess they're not hearing it. I'm not saying it loudly enough. So I became, you've all heard the term Bible thumper. I was like an extreme Bible thumper. Now, before I go any further, I want to advise you, never, ever do that. It was very counterproductive. It was a disaster, and I totally turned them off, and it did very lasting damage to my relationship with my now ex-wife and my 2 children, who are both adults. They were very traumatized by the experience and thought that their dad had gone off the deep end and become like this raging fanatic, which I was. I mean, guilty as charged. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong, because like, here I am giving them the good stuff. And the more they resisted it, the louder I got. You know? The other thing that was happening with them, just to clarify it, my morality had changed. I couldn't bear the sound of like heavy metal music, which was my son's favorite rock music. He had a rock band down in the basement, and he was playing heavy metal music or stuff that to me just sounded like right out of hell. It really offended me, and I'd yell and scream, turn that stuff off, it's from the devil, you know, blah, blah, blah. And my morality had changed. No more dirty movies, no more porn in the house, you know, no more swearing, no more blasphemy. I go on and on and on. And they didn't like, people don't like people to change. And like for my family, my wife and my 2 kids, it was very traumatic for their dad to, one day I'm this fun, lovey, easygoing, totally promiscuous guy. And then like, I come back from Paris and I am like, hard-nosed religious fanatic. It really messed up our relationship. Anyhow, but I couldn't figure out what was wrong. So what I eventually did, now this is over a period of weeks and months. What I eventually did is I went into silence. I didn't talk to anybody. Okay, nobody believes me. Nobody likes what I have to say. Nobody's interested. I just won't talk to them. So I went into a silent period. I was looking for something. I was looking for people that were seeking God, seeking Jesus. And it was really that simple. And I wasn't finding any. When I met up with my old friends and I'd eventually sort of steer the conversation to Jesus and God, I mean, they really made it really clear to me they didn't want to hear about that crap, because all my old friends were all atheists and stuff like that. So like, I lost all my friends. They literally, in the days, weeks, months, and years later, when they'd see me, they would go way out of their way to avoid me. And I said, people would like cross the street to not talk to me, it was really weird. And it was painful because like, I love these people. They'd been my buddies for decades, and now they didn't want to be in the same room with me. So I thought I should go to church, because that's where people talk about God and talk about Jesus, right? But I didn't know where to go. So I got out the yellow pages in the phone book and looked up churches and went through, and it's like, in this metropolitan area, the greater Cincinnati area that I live in, there are hundreds of churches, and like, all right, which one? Because in the yellow pages, name and address, phone number, and maybe like a little phrase or something, a loving community, whatever. So I finally found one that didn't have a building and met at a school in Cincinnati. And I thought, oh, that's the church for me, because they're not about a building. They're not about money. they just meet, they just, on Sunday, they meet, in a school building somewhere. So I talked my wife into going there. And we went there on Sunday morning and it was closed. It stopped meeting. So, okay, that was a big disappointment. So like I'm praying, God, help me find a church. And a friend of mine who I had hired as a part-time art teacher at Northern Kentucky University because I had been the head of the art department. It was Bev Urschel, still a good friend of mine. She called me up. How you doing? I heard you've been sick. And I said, yeah. And I asked her if she went to church. She said, yeah, we go to a really good church. And I said, where is it? And she told me it's like a mile and a half from my house. And she said, why don't you come? You really like it. A lot of good people. So it's like, I thought, this must be the sign from God. So I'm still really weak and I'm still recovering. So in the morning I get up, I shower, I shave, I put on my best suit, white shirt, tie, because I want to look really respectable. Because here's my big fear about going to church, that they would spot me as a sinner. Because I knew I was a sinner. And they would tell me to leave. I was really worried about that because I hadn't been in a church service in my adult life. I'd stopped going to church when I was 15. And we run a little late, get to the church. There's no parking spot in the front of the church. So my wife parks across the street in the bank parking lot. And we walk across the street and into church, which for me was exhausting. And I'm still really weak. So I walked 100 feet or something, which is the furthest I've gone in months. And the service has begun. And they're singing a hymn. And I walk into the church. There's two ushers escorting my wife and I trying to find a seat because the church was pretty full. And I look up and the ceiling's full of radiant golden angels. I mean, hundreds of angels up in the ceiling. So I did what I considered to be appropriate in the presence of all those angels. I literally threw myself on the ground, face down, my arms spread out, and began to praise God. The problem is, this was not a Pentecostal church or charismatic church. This was a mainline, what we lovingly call the frozen chosen. These are the people that they don't talk in church. They don't shout out. They don't clap. They don't raise their hands. They just, very, very civilized kind of people. And the ushers were quite concerned because they assumed that I'd had a heart attack or a stroke or something. They thought something had happened to me physically. They didn't realize that I was doing this voluntarily. So they're bent over me, trying to get me up. And my wife's bent over me and she's whispering as loud as she, get up, you idiot, you fool, you're making a spectacle of yourself. Everybody's looking at you. You're embarrassing me. Get up. We're never coming to church again. Get up, you idiot. So finally, I'm oh, maybe this isn't good behavior. It dawns on me, maybe I'm doing something wrong here. So I got up off the ground and they got some people to move over in a pew right next to where I had gone down. Everybody shoved over and made some space. My wife had sat down. And I murmured praises of God for the whole service, with tears of joy running out of my eyes. And my wife telling me occasionally, we're never coming to church again. It's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. The other thing I noticed was nobody was paying any attention to me. They was just like, okay, he's weird, whatever. I mean, they were too busy, doing their church thing. I mean, people really didn't care about me. And nobody asked me to leave. So I filled out in the back of the pew, they had a little card for request to visit from the pastor. So that week, the pastor came to see me at my house. His name's Bill Crawford. He's dead now. Real nice guy. And we ultimately became really good friends. And he asked me, and I told him about what had happened to me. And he just accepted it. Like, yeah, sure, of course. That's how God works, kind of thing. And that he'd love to have me be part of the church. So I spent a week begging, cajoling, threatening, demanding. I'm trying every technique in the world to convince my wife that I had to go back to church. And so we did go back there. And I started to meet people, and they all were just like very warm and not pushy, just accepted me. Didn't know anything about me, but just accepted me for who I was. And I saw the angels more at that time, and I knew I was in the right place. Because all I wanted to do was worship God. So like when we stood up and sang hymns, I, totally untrained musically, would sing as loudly as I could. And I guess it was pretty bad. And my wife would tell me I was terrible and embarrassing and stuff like that. The thing that redeemed me was where we chose to sit, which was kind of in my wife, I wanted to sit in the front of the church. My wife wanted to sit in the way back. So we were sitting in the way back. Because of course, wife always dictates what you're actually going to do. And the guy that sat right behind where I was sitting was a mentally disabled guy. And he was really a terrible singer. I mean, he got the words wrong, and he was never anywhere close to what the notes were supposed to be. And he sang with all his heart. And so I figured, well, if he can do it, I can do it too. At least I'm trying. He wasn't even trying. He was just having a good time praising God. So he gave me permission to be robust in my worship experience. So I just want to add, subsequently, when I've had the opportunity, I've been part of the choir, and I've been trying to learn how to sing a lot better. And now I'm just, I'm not a very good singer, but I'm not as bad as I used to be. Anyhow, the pastor and I, we would meet. I'd go to the church and talk to him during the day. And he asked me if I was just going to join the church. And I said, yeah. And he said, we're starting a new members class. And I went to that, and it was a wonderful experience. There were 6 or 7 other people. And we went through like several months of meeting once a week and talking about what it means to be part of a church and stuff like that. And I like that. And I got to meet some people personally, got to know them and like them. And what my impression of the church was, is just a collection of regular people. I mean, they were not saints. They were not holy people. They were not, there was some people that were wealthy, and there were some people that were really poor, but the overwhelming majority of people are just regular sort of middle-class people. And the only thing that we had in common was like, we were looking for something better. We're all hunting for the same thing. So I felt really, really, really at home. Like, yeah. And I told the pastor that anything he wanted me to do, I'd be happy to do it. So the first thing I did at the church was I painted the children's nursery. I painted it blue. It was great. And I did a real good job because I'm a professional artist. I know how to wield a paintbrush. And then eventually, over time, I was teaching Sunday school to teenagers, and pastor asked me if I was interested in what we call a lay ministry program, which was a 3-year program of classes, at the completion of which we were ordained as lay ministers in that church. And our duties were basically visiting the sick and shut in and taking them communion, which I liked very much, meeting the old people, who are either homebound or in nursing homes and stuff like that, and bring up communion. They super appreciated the visits and, being sharing communion. And the pastor was asking me to, do more stuff around the church. And then he was asking me to be the liturgist. And then he asked me a couple times if I wanted to preach and stuff like that. And I just knew that that was the community that belonged in, which was people seeking God. Meanwhile, I'd gone back to the work at the university, and there were Christians on the faculty at the university, but they had to lay real low because I also worked at a state university, and it was very, very unpopular to be identified as a Christian. Matter of fact, the group of people that had been my friends, we used to always mock the people that we knew were Christians because we figured they were idiots. There was like something mentally wrong with them that they would believe in all that superstitious garbage that we didn't believe in. And now that I had become a Christian, I started getting, I'd be at a chairperson's meeting, these are department heads, and people would make cracks about me and stuff like that openly in front of everybody, and everybody laughed and stuff like that. It's like, I was called in by the dean, who was my immediate boss, the dean of the College of Liberal Arts, and he threatened me and threatened my department for being a Christian and stuff like that. Seriously threatened me. The students, I wasn't like proselytizing in the classroom at all, because I didn't think that's, I was an art teacher. I didn't talk about God, the Bible, or Jesus or anything. But anyways, the word got out, and students were becoming very, very interested in me. And so basically, because I was department chair, I had an office with a sitting area outside. So it's like my office, my secretary's office, and then a sitting area. And that was like oftentimes full of students waiting to have one-on-one conferences with me because they wanted to talk about their stuff. Sometimes it was about church, sometimes it was about God, sometimes about their family, sometimes it was about their boyfriend or girlfriend. But anyways, so I was like spending so much time at the university being a counselor to the students because like they wanted help with their lives, and they weren't getting it from other people. I don't know why. I don't know why. Frankly, the way I used to be with students when they wanted to talk to me was, well, I guess the way most effective was like kind of blow them off. Like, yeah, oh, fine. Okay. People know when you don't care, when you think what you have to do is far more important than talking to them. They know that, people aren't stupid. You don't have to spell it out for them. They get it. But I was very interested. So I love the students. I love the teaching, but I didn't like the attitude of a lot of the faculty in the university. And I loved the church. I love the people, and I love what the church is trying to do, which is trying to build a community of real faith and hope in God. And don't tell me what's wrong with the church. I pastored churches for 30 years. I know more than you do about what's wrong with the church. I lived it for 30 years. There's lots of things wrong with the church. But my rationale is, if you've ever worked in a restaurant, a hospital, a law office, a factory, worked on an assembly line, guess what? There's things wrong with all those institutions. If you have a real intimate relationship with a doctor or a lawyer or a policeman or a carpenter or a factory worker, they'll tell you all the things that are wrong with the places that they work at. Every institution is terribly flawed because it's made up of people. The church is flawed because it's made up of people. What's wrong with the church is the people that come there. So if you want a perfect church, find a church made up of perfect people. The only problem is you could find such a creature, which doesn't exist. you can't go there because you're not perfect and you'd ruin the church because you'd be the big imperfect thing in a perfect situation. So part of being part of a church is working with the people that are there and working with the situation. And that's what I did. I've retired. I've been retired for a few years, and I'm very active in the church that I started off in, the church that I first went to. And I'm very committed to it. And I would like to believe that some of the things that I'm doing are trying to make that church a little better church. So as Martin Luther said, the church is always in need of reformation. And I am part of the Reformed tradition started by Martin Luther and Ulrich Zwingli, where I followed the reformers, and they were both Catholic priests, those two guys, and they were both loyal to the Catholic Church, and they had no intention of creating a new church or leaving the Catholic Church. But when they tried to reform the Catholic Church from some practices that they thought were not right, basically they were booted out and told they were going to hell. So what they did was they just started having their own church. And that's how things called Protestants came into being. I love the Catholic Church, but I love my own church more than the Catholic Church because we're reformers, and we are literally always trying to make the church better. And what does it mean making it better? Well, some people want to make it better this way, and some people want to make it better that way. It's a difficult thing, but I found a community. There are other communities. I mean, people who are like-minded that I belong to, and we could talk about the stuff that I'd rather talk about God's stuff than anything else. I'm not interested in professional sports. It seems like practically everybody wants to talk about sports, and I'm like, I tell people I'm not interested. Sorry. I'm not a hunter. Can't talk about hunting. I don't want to talk about women's anatomy, which was a favorite subject of me and my friends when we were my college professor friends when we were out drinking on Friday and Saturday night. There are things that I'm just not interested in talking about. I want to talk about God and making the world a better place and that kind of stuff. That's what interests me. And church is a place where we do that. And I went to seminary, so I learned a lot of stuff, but everybody's got great things to say. Let me just tell you one anecdote to illustrate that. In that new members class, when I first started going to the church, there was an old lady and an old man. And when I mean old, I mean they were like in their 80s. And he was really, really deaf, or as we say in Kentucky, deaf. You deaf. So everything the pastor said during the class, she would yell in his ear. He didn't wear hearing aids. She would yell in his ear what the pastor just said. It was so annoying. It made you crazy because like you're trying to listen to the pastor. Meanwhile, she's repeating what the pastor just said really loudly into her husband's ear. It's like, made me crazy, because it was very, it's hard to hear the pastor with her, doing that all the time. They're a sweet old couple, but that was like just really annoying. And I didn't like her, I didn't like him. I really wanted them to not be there, go away, stop coming. So one day the pastor says, we're going to do a little exercise today. And what I want to do is I'm going to pair you up with someone, and I want you each to tell the other person when you first knew there was a God. So guess who he pairs me up with? This old lady that I don't like. And like, oh man, of all the people in this room, why her? So anyways, she and I are sitting opposite each other, and she says, I know you're a college professor, and I know you're an educated man, and I only went to the 3rd grade, and I don't have no education, and I can't talk to you. So you got to do all the talking, because I'm not going to talk to you because you're educated and I'm not. And I said, no, the pastor told us that we have to share when we first knew there was a God. And because the pastor said we were supposed to do that, that's what we're going to do. And you're going to start. I'm talking to her like she was a student, like, no, the assignment is this and we're going to do it. And you're starting right now. So anyway, she thinks about what I said and she goes, well, kind of hard for me to say. Because ever since I was an earliest child, I always knew there was a God, and I've always loved God all my life. Tried to do my best. So me being the smart guy, I got her. I'm gonna nail her right now. I said, so have you ever been afraid? She looks at me, she said, I've never been afraid a minute in my life because God is with me all the time. So you know what I did? I cried. Because here's this 80-year-old woman who spent 80 years of her life with knowing God's with her and believing in God. And here I am, I'm 38 years old, and I just figured out a few months before that there was a God, who I said there was no God. And now I figured out there was a God. And I'm trying to, like, what do I do with this? What do I do with my life? And here's this uneducated nobody who's miles ahead of me. I mean, miles ahead of me. So that was like a really big lesson for me. So like, one of the things I don't do is I don't go around judging people. I try and get people to talk about what they believe in, what they care about, and what's important to them. But I don't judge them, kind of figure everybody's on their own journey. And the journey is going to end up with God at some point, and just because they're at this place in their journey and I'm at this place in my journey doesn't make me any better. We're just all on different journeys, I wish churches were more open to all people. Like I worked at a mission church for a couple of years in Cincinnati. Really, 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 really bad neighborhood, really poor neighborhood, gangs, crime, poverty. And there was a attractive woman that showed up. And we had a very small congregation, like be 20 people at worship on Sunday. So she showed up on Sunday. So after she went up and started talking to her. Seemed like a real nice lady, probably in her mid-20s, nice looking. And like the next day, I was asking some people of the neighborhood if they knew who she was. She said, "Oh yeah, she's a prostitute. She works on the corner of such and such a street." I went, oh, well, that's interesting. So she showed up the next Sunday, and because I talked to her and we had a nice conversation, we talked again and stuff like that. And anyways, we started getting friendly, and I didn't ask her what she did for a living because I knew what she did for a living. But I asked her, because she had a little boy, what she hoped to do in the future. And she said, I'd really like to go to school and learn how to do become a key punch operator. That's when computer cards had holes in them. I'm going backwards here, and then that's how you put in these cards that were full of holes, and that's how you inputted information into the computer. Anyway, so it was a it was a living. And she wanted to take classes to learn how to do that so she could do that as her job. So anyways, I did some research and found where she did, and she started going to key punch operator school. I was like, oh man, yay, gonna get her out of the life. I never told her anything negative about what she was doing as a prostitute. I just trying to help steer her towards a better way of life. And that went on for a few months, and she's going to school. And then all of a sudden, I never saw her again. Stopped coming to church, didn't come around anymore. And I asked some people in the neighborhood, have you seen her? And said, yeah, she's back on the corner. I don't know what happened. So I tried to rescue her. Didn't work. But anyways, so you win some, you lose some. Maybe she got out of that life in time, found a better way to make a living. So, we can't fix anybody. We can't change anybody. If they're looking for some help, maybe we can offer them some help. But people don't need judgment, And I think one of the things that's wrong with church, generally speaking, is tends to be judgmental. Like it's sort of like we got it and you don't. We're in God's favor and you're not, kind of thing. Or you certainly kind of feel that from some churches. That I call it that holier than thou attitude. Somehow we're holier. Well, you're not, buddy. You are not. You are so not. And if you've got that holier than thou attitude, you just flunked the whole holiness test. Like the real saints, like let's take a Mother Teresa, for example. She was so humble and so not going around acting like a holy person. And, she is, without doubt, she's no argument. She was absolutely a saintly person, Mother Teresa, a holy person. That's what saint means, is holy. And, she didn't lord it over anybody. Matter of fact, she got in trouble all of her life for hanging out with the lowest people in society. She got punished by her mother superior and stuff like that for doing the kind of work that she wanted to do. It was not popular. It was not an easy ride for her. And that's the way a lot of saints have been. Look at St. Francis and St. John. Just go on and on. The same kind of lives. So really holy people are not judgmental people. They're humble people. And all they're trying to do is to be useful, trying to do God's will, which is to be loving and kind, especially to those people that need it. So I'm tried to do that myself. And that's one of the reasons why I've been really involved and passionate about mission work all my life. And I still am. And that's what my big activity is now, is doing mission work in Central America. Something I'm involved with pretty much every day of my life. Trying to help these Mayan Indians that I work with. Anyhow, I found community. Is it heaven on earth? A little bit. A little bit yes, a little bit no. Is it the kingdom of God on earth? No. The church is not the kingdom of God on earth. What we say is that the church is trying to be a sign pointing towards the kingdom of God. We're trying to point people towards the kingdom of God. Like the kingdom of God could look like this, but we're not it. You know, but as opposed to working for a business that doesn't give a damn about the employees and doesn't really care about the quality of the product that they make and stuff like that, which if any of you have been around a little bit, you've all experienced that too, where you end up working for a place and then you become really disillusioned because you find out that they only care about one thing, and that is money, 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 making money any way they can do it. And that's not what a church is supposed to be about at all. As a pastor, let me tell you, it's one of the conflicts about running a church is it takes money to pay the heating bill. Church I served in Cincinnati, in the wintertime, our gas bill was $3,000 a month. Little church with started when I started there, 50 people on Sunday. We got $3,000 a month heating bill in the wintertime. Well, let me tell you, the collection per month was not $3,000. We didn't take in $3,000 a month. So it's like, you know, and we had the secretary's salary and my salary and part-time janitor's salary, and we had the electric bill and the water bill and the sewage bill. I mean, it's like, that's the thing. That's the kind of stuff you get involved in when you start pastoring a church, is how to pay the bills. You know, and I hated to talk about money. I hated it, still do. I'm terrible about that. That's why in this mission work that I do, one of the things that I have to do is fundraise. I do a lot of fundraising, and it's like, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. But, you know, if we don't have the money, we can't buy the materials and we can't pay the workers. It's meaning we can't do the things we're doing. So you do what you got to do, right? It's my job. And that's part of being part of the community, is like everybody's got their job to do, you know? And if you care about the community, you do your best to take your part in that community to do what you can to contribute, you know? So, but I love my community. I mean, I love the church. And when I say the church, I don't mean I love my little local church, but I love the church universal. I've been to hundreds of different kinds of churches all over the world, and I love them all. But I love my own the best, you know, because it's where I'm comfortable and safe and happy, and they know me and I know them. It just makes it all real cozy. So that was how I was looking for heaven when I came back, and that's the best that I could find out. If you know of something better, let me know and I'll go do that instead. I mean, I'll drop everything that I've done and known and experienced since 1985, and I'll go join you if you know something better than what I found. But I've made that offer before, and nobody's ever offered me anything better, you know. So, my fellow God-seeking hunters, I love this hat. It's very warm. I hope you find what you're looking for, and I hope what you're looking for is God to the best of your ability to understand and seek that. So God bless you.
Awesome. I like that chapter. It actually is touching on some of the stuff I'm going through right now. I got some people, and myself included, looking to do like online churching, I guess you'd call it. I don't know, Zoom.
Yeah,
We're going to
cool.
try to set up as a group, because I'm not a big church going man.
Yeah.
I keep getting asked to go to church. I keep getting people saying, what church are you a part of?
Yeah.
I got to tell them I'm not. I don't. I went to church as a younger man, you know, as a kid, Catholic. but I didn't like it. I don't know why. I know you said, if don't like church, you're not going to like heaven, but not that I disagree with that. I just don't think that.
Well, I
I
like
like
the idea you're creating your own online church.
Well,
That's a
I'm
great
trying
idea.
to. We're trying to do a Bible study. I don't know much about Bible study. I've never done it that I know of. Maybe I have when I was younger as a kid, but I don't recall. We're just picking books and going to try to discuss them with each other.
Go slow. That's my advice. Just go slow. No
What do you mean?
hurry.
What do you mean by going slow? Just don't. I don't know.
Just take like for your topic, just do a few passages at a time. Don't try and like, okay, we're going to read 3 books and discuss them. No, read read 20 verses and discuss them.
20 verses. Yeah, that's what I figured we are going to do. Yeah, I guess that's it. One other thing I was going to ask you, and I forgot to. You had touched on this a long time ago about when you spoke to Jesus, he said to you that when you asked him which is the best way to find God, or which church is the best way to, which one, he said whatever one brings you closer to God. So recently I'm doing a lot of research and reading on the Muslim religion and also Mormons. I've actually dabbled in, not that I'm interested in going this way, I just thought I'd read about it because it's actually a religion, a satanic religion. Again, I'm not Satanist by any way, so whoever's watching this, I've been called a Satanist already. I want to confirm that I'm not. I just I read about it because it touches on a lot of the stuff that reminds me of other religions. But so if you're in those religions, my question to you is, are those the ones that are bringing you closer to God, or does it have to be a Christian religion? I've been asked that several times. So
no, I think for me it's absolutely Jesus Christ and Christianity. But there are billions, not millions, billions of people in the world who know nothing about Jesus Christ. There are no Christian churches around them, and they've been raised in other faiths like Islam and Taoism and Buddhism and things like, which I've also read some stuff in, and they can find God in those religions too.
But is it not, are they not find, like if they don't find Jesus, according to the Bible, he's the doorway and the path to heaven. If you don't have him, you're pretty much not going there from what I gather.
Well, I don't interpret the Bible that way. I think that the way of Jesus is the doorway, the path, the gate to heaven. And the way of Jesus is to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And if you do that, you know Jesus. You may not know the word name Jesus. You may know nothing about the guy who lived 2,000 years ago in the Holy Land, and went around and preached, and the Bible talks about, but you know Jesus and he knows you.
What about
in theology, it's called the anonymous Christ. People can know the Christ without knowing the story of Jesus.
Okay, that's an excellent point, actually. I clarifies it for me a lot, but talking to Mormons or even Muslims, they know Christ, but they don't believe he's the son of God. I mean, Mormons think that he's he's a child, but he's brothers with Satan, for example, and Muslims believe he was just a prophet that was too afraid to go to the cross. So, I mean, how do those people, if they still believe in a higher power, but they distance themselves from Jesus and as the son of man or the son of God or God himself?
I mean, obviously, I think they're mistaken and wrong, but if they're following the way of Jesus, which I just defined very simply, they're following Jesus whether they think he's the son of God or not.
Okay, that's all I got for you. I don't want to drill you with too many questions here. I know that you could probably answer every question I have, which you have, but I don't want to drill you with questions, maybe for another Q&A period. But yeah, great chapter. I appreciate that. You really clarify things for me each time I listen to you. You take me into a good spot. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
And next chapter, I think it was chapter 15 we're doing next, whenever you get a chance.
Yeah.
All right. So I do want to thank you for coming on again, Howard. And everybody's giving you a thumbs up, by the way. Everybody's really happy with the book and the chapter. We get a couple trolls, but they're easily dismantled, so don't worry about them.
Well, you know what? I read an article about a pop singer, and someone asked her about the haters, and she said, "Oh yeah, I get haters every day on my social media stuff." And she said, "You're not doing. If you're not getting haters, you're not doing anything."
Mm-hmm.
if you're out there trying to do something, you're gonna draw some haters. So she said, no, I don't, they don't bother me at all. Like, matter of fact, I think it's flattering that apparently I'm making enough of an impact that there's people that hate me and want to tell me about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's an excellent way
Yeah.
of putting it. Yeah. Well, good. Let them hate, right? So
Yeah.
it is what it is. All right. I won't hold you any longer. I appreciate you doing the video, and I'll see you next week.
All right. God bless you, Corey.
God bless you as well. See ya.
Bye.